Do you like horror movies?
Well, they are listening to this podcast.
Okay, but do you really like horror movies? Because this is a test. Welcome to our top 5 countdown of the 6 horror movies we bet you haven't seen.
You might need to check your math.
I was told there'd be no math. But this is what we were thinking of for this week. And by the way, welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast.
I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf, and we're from madwolf.com. And we've had a bunch of fun going through the years, starting with the 60s. And, of course, last week we brought it up to today about our favorite horror movies by decade. But then every week we talk about some that were kind of on the fringe.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
Kind of been left out a little bit. The diehards have seen them, but not everybody has. And that got us thinking.
Yeah, it was, I mean, in almost every decade, I would already have a short list in my head of my very favorites. And then when you start combing through, you realize, well, there are 15 others that really have to be talked about first. And then every week, like the one I wanted the most to talk about, I realized it didn't make the list. But I'm not, for those of you who might think I'm pointing a finger at George, who is like cutting my favorite movies off, that's not the case at all. It's just that all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I can't leave The Exorcist off the list of the best movies of the 70s. I guess that means I can't talk about my little gem. So what I wanted to do today was talk about it turned out to be 6 movies that not enough people have seen, like really brilliant, exceptional horror movies that too few people have seen.
Yeah, and it's some of them, too, in just talking with people personally, either around here from our friends or whoever we run into that also loves these movies, that also you're surprised by that people haven't seen these movies.
Yeah, actually, a couple of these, a few years ago, I co-curated an Asia Extreme festival at a theater in town. And so 3 of us got together, just giant horror nerds got together. And I was surprised by how many of the movies on this list my 2 co-curators had not seen before. So real big horror people have missed a lot of these. And in a lot of cases, because they're foreign. And a lot of people just miss foreign horror movies and don't give them a shot. So we're hoping that you'll give all of these a chance.
Yeah, now, probably there's a lot of you that have seen some of these, and that's great because we know you're diehards, and we love that. Fright Clubbers are a healthy, sturdy stock.
That's right.
That can take these movies, and that's what we love talking about. No wussies allowed. Picture that big circle with the X through it and the word wussies. That's what we have hanging up in the studio. But so it's our top 6, top 5 countdown. That's the new math. But you know what? We got to go back to last week because we, as I said, we brought it up to date. We did the top 5 of the first half of the 2010s. Mm-hmm. Some great movies.
Some great movies.
Some equally great movies left off the list.
Yep.
We could the ones that left on the cutting room floor were just incredible. And as you might guess, as always, we got some great feedback. So we love that. We always love to touch on that as well.
Bridget Oliver, one of our very favorites over at Facebook, she pointed out we did not leave the kill list off entirely. It's just that it didn't make the actual top 5. We mentioned it in passing, and I think she would have liked to see it actually crack the top 5. And then the other one that she brings up, and I don't think either of us are positive we think this is a horror movie, but it is a great movie. So the one she was hoping to see on there, or at least hear mentioned, was Borgman. Yeah,
when she wrote that and messaged us about it, and I read that, it's such a freaky movie. I myself wouldn't call it a horror movie.
But it's like, it's very dark. It's very dark and creepy. Yeah.
And actually in some strangely beautiful ways. I mean, some of the visuals in that movie are really, really great. And it just messes with your head. It really does.
Well, I think that was her message. She's seen it like 4 times, and she's still not quite sure what the hell's going on.
Yeah, it is crazy. I myself wouldn't call it a horror movie, but I'm not going to quibble if you do, because there are certainly some horrific elements to it. So if you haven't seen Borgman, definitely check that out and get ready for a head trip.
And then over at Twitter, Joseph H513, he had actually a whole slew of movies that he thought maybe we should have at least mentioned. I'm going to call a couple of them out here because several of them we actually love. Housebound.
Yeah, Housebound, that is a movie, and there's a handful of them, a movie that really don't get justice done unless you're watching them in a full theater with people hooping and hollering and yelling and laughing, and boy, that's right. If we had a top 6, top 5 list of those types of movies, that would be at the top because
we saw that. We saw that at the horror movie marathon that they have at the Drexel Theater every year. We saw that last year with a huge group of like-minded nuts,
into it.
Oh yeah,
screaming and yelling and laughing.
It's a crowd pleaser.
It really is.
It really is.
I mean, not that you couldn't enjoy it, at home by yourself. But boy, it adds a lot to it.
Yeah,
when
see
some
it
of
with a
those
lot of
things
people.
happen and people are just and just yelling. It's a lot of fun. So Housebound, good call there. Another one that is in a fun vein is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
I love that movie.
That one I think has probably been seen. That got a wide. I think that got a wide.
People like that. It's on TV a lot, but it's just fun. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves Tucker and Dale.
Kind of a Shaun of the Dead type of vein.
Yeah, with the hillbilly horror instead of zombies.
But clever, very clever,
very clever,
and well done. It's got Pirate Steve from Dodgeball.
Alan Tudyk.
That's what we call him.
Pirate Steve.
And he's great. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. And another one that we were kind of split on, and actually we want to see this again because it didn't do it for us the first time, and that's You're Next.
Yeah, it's very popular. People like it a lot, and I didn't care for it when I saw it. I
didn't really either.
I reviewed it for the newspaper when it came out, and I just wasn't that sold on it. But it reminds me that when I first saw the movie The Strangers, I didn't really care for it either. And on repeated viewings, I do. I like that movie a lot.
I did. I liked it right from the start.
I remember you did. So I feel like we might need to just watch You're Next.
Yeah, I'm with
again.
you on You're Next. It really didn't blow me away. But I'm game because we've talked to a lot of people, not just Joseph. He's just the latest. A lot of people that really like that. So, okay.
We'll have to give it another shot.
Give it another shot, yeah. So thank you for that. Keep that feedback coming. We love it. On Twitter is one of the most popular ways. We are at Mad Wolf, MADDWOLF. We've also got the Facebook page, which is fun. We're Mad Wolf Columbus. And also just madwolf.com. So, we're... Or
Golden Spiral Media on the website. They have a place for comments there.
Yeah, comments, feedback line, and all sorts of things. So we like to stay in touch because this is fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Which is why we're doing this. So
it's a club, after all.
It is a club. It's a fright club. And it's the top 6, top 5 list. And this is
movies that we think you haven't seen and you need to.
Right. This one might be... I'm glad it's number 6, not because it's not good, but because I think... This one may be the most seen on this list because I have seen it lately popping up on some of the cable channels. And that...
Well, I have to say this was almost a list of 7 because of my beloved The Loved Ones, which George pointed out to me is on cable TV every 20 minutes, and I cannot still keep pretending people haven't seen it.
And you've talked about it every single week. I mean, I like it too.
But if you haven't seen it, please watch it.
I'm going to stab her in the heart. Like you stabbed me. And you know what? Corey, our Australian friend, is going...
I can't hear you.
He's going, I'm sorry, was that an Australian accent you're trying to do? Because you're pitiful. Please stop it. Corey, I hear you, and I'm stopping it now. Okay, but number 6 is Eden Lake.
Why don't we just find another spot?
I'm not going to be bullied away by a bunch of 12-year-olds.
Stu, where's the beach bag?
It's got the car keys in it.
First phone each sees 999. Now we've got to finish this.
Yeah, and that one actually gets a lot more attention maybe now because it co-stars Michael Fassbender.
Yes.
Back before he became a great big superstar. But it is, and it's also got a guy who now is
Jack O'Connell.
Yeah, becoming a big star.
And Kelly Riley, she's a pretty big star in her own right. So it's got a lot of faces that you're going to recognize. At least until they get all covered in blood, and then they're harder to figure out. God,
right.
This one is hard to watch, but it is so incredibly well done. I mean, the performances are just genius. The acting is great. The way it's directed is just wonderful. Director James Watkins, who also wrote it, he went on then to direct The Woman in Black, another favorite of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the setup is Michael Fassbender and Kelly Riley. They're off. They want to go to a very secluded spot for the weekend, just them, this beautiful lake, Eden Lake. They think it's just them, and they find out that there's a group of young thugs, group of teens that are out just to cause trouble, and Michael Fassbender tries to get them to quiet down, and one thing leads to another, and they get terrorized. And these teens, led by Jack O'Connell, who, as we said, he starred in Unbroken. It was great.
Yeah.
And he also starred in 71, which is a recent movie. We didn't see it.
He's got a slew of things out right
so
now.
He
really
really
does.
up and coming.
He absolutely is. He's great in everything. I mean, he's just really good in everything.
And he's the ringleader of the teens. And boy, there's some bad stuff happens there in the woods. And it's exciting. It's like you said. It's hard to watch. It's tough and unrelenting. And it's got I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's got an ending not everyone is going to like.
No.
But I think if you're a horror aficionado, as I know you are, you're going to understand it.
Yeah. It's a great movie. It's just one that everybody, if you are a horror fan, if you're a passing horror fan, you probably don't want to watch this. But if you're a horror fan and you haven't seen Eden Lake, you just need to right now.
Yeah, and that is from 2008. And as I said, it has gotten, probably because of Michael Fassbender, maybe. It's definitely gotten some more cable viewings here in the last few years. I've seen it pop up. So maybe that could be one that a lot of people have seen, but still not enough. Not enough. So that's number 6 of our top 5. And
speaking of hard to watch, here comes one of my favorites.
A lot of people have seen this. I think it's got to be a lot of people's favorites of their, the secret little. I think I mentioned this before when talking about this movie. A little wink, wink. Like, have you seen it? Have you seen it?
Have you seen it?
And you just know. And that is from 2011, and it's The Woman.
This is our project, and it's a secret.
What are we gonna do with her?
We're gonna help her. We're gonna train her, civilize her, free her from herself, from her baser instincts.
Do you really think we should be doing this? Do we really get to keep her?
We do.
Pollyanna McIntosh. She's going to kick your ass when she gets those chains off, man. You are in trouble.
And you know what? In getting that a clip, it reminded me, and I knew this guy. A few months ago, I had to sit through one of the latest Nicholas Sparks films called The Best of Me. And it was just awful. And one of the bad guys is the dad from The Woman, and he had longer hair.
Sean Bridgers,
yeah.
Because when he doesn't have a beard, he's kind of like a very wrong Will Ferrell. He's got like a Will Ferrell way about him, and in this movie, in The Woman, he's got this like cherub kind of a way about him, and things are not going to go well. And then Angela Bettis, so Lucky McKee directed it, and who also directed May. Angela Bettis, who's so brilliant in the movie May, she plays his wife. Pollyanna McIntosh plays the feral woman that he catches and chains up in the shed because he's going to civilize. And right there, you're like, what in the hell?
Well, I know, and then his face when the boy says, "Can we keep her?" And he's just all like,
just
yes,
proud,
we can. I know.
Beaming with paternal pride.
Oh my God! It's got some dark, sick humor to it.
Oh, it does. Oh my God!
This nice family dynamic, and like you said, we're going to civilize her, and then and
it just goes from bad to worse. I mean, so I reviewed this for the newspaper back when it first came out, and it was one they didn't have a screening that you went to. They had at that time DVD that they sent home for you to watch to preview, and it came instead of in a little plastic case, it came in a vomit bag. The DVD for this movie, which is genius.
That's a good sign.
It is a good sign.
Oh, it came in a vomit bag.
And the screenplay was co-written by Jack Ketchum, who's an infamous horror writer, and that's actually in its own way, it's a sequel to another movie called The Offspring, which is pretty bad. Actually, it's not worth seeing. I wouldn't recommend checking out. But Pollyanna McIntosh stars in that as well, and what she does in this movie is just outstanding. And it just the way it's written, the way it just goes from ugly to uglier still, and the way it just rethinks the familial structure and patriarchy in particular.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for the god-awful performance of the science teacher. Remember the science teacher who's pretty sure the teenage daughter is pregnant? Oh, that is the least of her problems, ma'am. And so she comes out and meets the dogs. Oh my God. But yeah, she's terrible. The woman who plays the science teacher, she is god-awful. She's got to be a producer's wife or daughter or something. She's awful. But beyond that, aside from that, if you can sidestep that, oh my God, I love this movie.
Especially when it becomes when the revenge comes into play, when the woman gets her due.
Oh, and for 90 minutes, it's coming. You just see her face. It's because she's unfazed by every single thing they do to her. Yeah. She's just hanging there waiting, just staring a hole at you, just waiting.
Yeah.
It's not going to be fun for you when she gets out of there.
No.
Oh, my God. So great.
So that one, if ever there was a ringing endorsement, is that the producers saw fit to send it in a vomit bag. So check it out, and it's from 2011. For some reason,
seems older, doesn't it? I think so too.
It does seem older, especially when I think about that actor. What's his name?
Sean Bridgers.
Yeah. When I think about how different he looked just last year in The Best of Me, that it just seemed like not that many years ago. That it was farther, farther away than that. But yeah, 2011 for The Woman. So check it out. Number 5 of our top 5 countdown. And another one, moving up to number 4, another Australian entry. Yeah. It's the Snowtown Murders.
Do you mind if I stay over?
Of course, mate. You ever shot a gun before? You want to shoot it? They're nobody, mate. They're nothing.
I think this was originally called Snowtown, but that might have just been in its Australian release because it's based on a true story of serial killer in that suburb called Snowtown. So maybe it was famous enough.
Not a nice story.
It isn't. No. And the film reminds me of a low-key version of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, in a certain way, but it is so unsettling, this movie, and it shows you only one murder, and that's more than enough. Everything else about this, it's really about a predator swimming among prey. It's about a society without men, without adult male role models who will cling to anyone that comes their way, and it goes from being sort of vendetta, sort of getting even, to being a thinning of the herd, to just being sick fun. As he just one by one kills off members of their community. And it's also it's another type of movie that shows you an example of how a sociopath will ingratiate themselves to the people that they will ultimately seek to control. Yeah.
And it also reminded me in a different way of the movie Animal Kingdom.
Absolutely. Very much.
You ever seen Animal Kingdom? It's a great, great movie.
Also Australian. Also very naturalistic in that way.
Yeah. About a group of bank robbers.
Right.
And how they close ranks on their family, and the sociopath at the head of the family, who you think is the head of the family until the end, which is great, uses those kind of tricks to manipulate a younger person, just like this movie.
Yes,
it's not. Animal Kingdom is not as grisly.
It's not a horror film.
It's not a straight up horror movie. I mean, there's killing.
Yeah.
But it's an equally great movie though. So check it out if you can.
No question.
But it reminded me of that in those types of ways of manipulation.
Absolutely.
I guess, and family ties. Even though these two in this movie aren't family. He kind of is looking for a family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, what makes the whole thing come together so well for me is the actor Daniel Henshaw, who plays the killer John Bunting. He is just sort of a sweet-faced, chubby schlub.
Yeah.
He's just a big old nothing, just likable as you please, and you can see where, unlike Henry, where, Michael Rooker is intimidating. He's wiry. He's creepy. This guy just looks like somebody you want to just hug. And God, his performance is just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. And
when he turns and gets evil,
yeah.
He's not that little sweet-faced guy anymore.
Yeah, oh my God, it's such a good movie. It's such a good movie, and very few people saw it. And a lot of people I think don't even realize that it is a horror film. I think they really don't. So,
I think
a lot of horror fans have missed it. But it's a great serial killer film. It's based on true events. Incredibly well done, brilliantly acted, and give it a shot if you haven't. The Snowtown Murders.
Yeah, definitely. And the next one, number 3 in our top 6, top 5. This one is so little seen. I haven't seen it. So that right there, only 50% of this panel has seen this movie. And but from doing research on it and getting the clip, it definitely looks like something that it would be worth checking out. And that is from 2006, and it's called Them.
In the still of the night, we hear things. We see things. We imagine things that aren't always there. But tonight, your imagination isn't playing tricks. And neither are they. Them.
This is a French movie, and right there. I mean, the French make really great horror movies, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
And it's from a pair of directors, David Moreau and Xavier Palud, who've done...
I'm sorry, what was his name?
I forget. And it's got elements of Eden Lake about it, and it's also got elements, weirdly enough, of The Strangers about it.
Listening to that trailer, that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
So,
but it's just, and it's really short. It's like maybe 75 minutes long. A couple move into a big old Radley house in Belgium. We're going to be doing some work abroad, and little by little, they haven't really unpacked. The house makes a lot of noise. And then little by little, is it the house noise they're hearing or is it something else? Is it this pack of sadistic, bored children? Yes, it is. And so it's just this spare, terrifying, incredibly fast-paced game of cat and mouse. It just, you are on edge every second of this movie, and every time it's, they want to be empathetic. Again, a little bit like Eden Lake. I mean, you want to think somewhere in your heart there is a heart of a child because you're a child, but don't think that. It's a bad idea.
When you say children, how old are we talking here?
Well, from teenage to small, from teenage to probably 7, just like all the neighborhood kids.
Oh, okay, but they're not living in the house.
No, they're just terrorizing the people who are there. Yeah,
okay.
Just all the neighborhood kids.
Well, you hooked me.
It's so good. It's so quick. It's so fast-paced, and it's so just terrifying. And it's going to remind you of things, that the things we already mentioned. It'll remind you maybe a little bit of Inside, with the sort of, oh, they're in the house. I didn't know they were in the house. Oh, my God, they're in the house kind of a thing. It'll just rattle your nerves, really, more than anything. And it's got a great payoff. It's so worth checking out if you have not seen, from 2006, Ills. And I tell you that because there are like 25 movies called Them.
Right.
So you need to look it up as Them, ILS, Ills.
Well, yeah, you're right. The French usually can bring it. And so that sound, from listening to your description and then and checking out the clip there, that's, did you watch that at home? Where was I?
No, I reviewed that.
Did you?
I did.
So it opened here. It had
did.
a wide release?
No, I think it was just like a Nightmares on High. So for like a week.
Special midnight screening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe, okay. Well, that's, if it's out there on Netflix or wherever, maybe to be... it
is on Netflix. I don't know if it
Netflix.
streams. You might have to get the DVD, but it is on Netflix.
Well, it sounds like it's worth it. Cool. All right, the top 2 from 2010, and this one was one that got an American remake that wasn't bad, but we prefer the original of We Are What We Are.
Yeah, this movie is just remarkably well put together. It is, every weighted glance means something. Every pause means something. Every closed door means something. It's such an incredibly, it's a richly developed and yet incredibly weird movie and it's almost like it's set in Mexico City. This incredible population of just disposable people, of people
in more ways than one.
People feeding on other people in
more
literally
and
one. Metaphorically.
That's right.
And it's like, to me, it's almost like this little hunter-gatherer population just evolved inside the larger community. Because what happens at the very beginning of the film is, a man dies in the mall, and he's like a janitor at the mall, and he dies. But what that does is it sets a chain of events, and his family,
his son,
family who's struggling to survive, then they have to determine who's going to be the patriarch. Although it seems to me that the oldest daughter is in the running too. So who's going to be kind of the breadwinner, so to speak, the provider? Okay, who's going to put the meat on the table? And also, there's a ritual. So he died at a really inconvenient time because there's some ritual. And one of the things I love about it, they don't explain it to you, because why would they stop and explain it to the audience? Everybody in the house knows what it means, and it means that there's some preparations to be made, and they got to get a body in that house really soon. And then, there's a struggle among the three. The 3 children, do they even want this job? I don't think they do want this job. On the other hand, maybe they do want this job. You know what I mean? It's like they don't want to do it. They want to do it. They're compelled to do. It's so rich and layered and unsettlingly realistic given what's going on.
It is. Layered is a good word for it, because not only you touched on the fact that it's a metaphor for society feeding on one section of society, feeding on another, and that is a nice undercurrent. But then it's also a little bit of a family and drama of how are the younger generation going to break away and do their own thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's this type of family tradition or just anything, where a certain parents may want them to stay and do how we did it, but they want to do their own thing. So you've got that going on too, all under the tent of a horror movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's what sets it apart. I think.
And then some of the scenes are just so deeply weird. Like there's a comeuppance scene like on a playground that's just weird.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I mean,
that's a good scene. Yeah,
it is. Just from beginning to end, this is a brilliant movie. And there is a really decent American remake from a couple of years ago.
It's not as good.
No, it's not.
But it is decent.
It is good. Michael Parks.
You gotta love Michael Parks. Yeah.
See all things Michael Parks.
Yeah. Including, what was that one with the walrus?
Tusk.
Yeah. In fact, that's one where, you know, we've talked about before how sometimes when we hear there's going to be an American remake, why do you have to do that? But then first, Michael Parks is in it. Okay. And it was definitely competent. But if you're going to see one, and the one that's definitely on this list, is see the original. And then if you're really digging it, if you have time, check out the American remake too, and see how they differ. Because I think the remake doesn't do that scene you talked about, the playground scene. I don't like it as much.
No, I agree. There are a lot of ways where it kind of misses the mark. But what I liked about it was that it wasn't like it was not by no means a shot for shot remake. Whereas the Mexican original it's a social commentary. It's very entrenched in a Mexican social commentary. This one it's more of an American Southern Gothic. It's very rootsy American but it works. I mean, it works equally well in the way that they explain why they're doing what they're doing.
But the original seems more desperate.
And it seems, the original seems more real. That's one of the things that make it seem so unsettling is you buy this could be happening.
Yeah.
They're so authentic about what they're doing that it just seems like, oh, maybe so. Oh, no.
Yeah, the family, to me, just seemed more desperate, especially the mom.
Oh, yeah.
After the man died. So We Are What We Are is just from another one that I thought maybe was a little older, but it's 2010.
Yeah.
So that one, I don't think a lot of people have seen.
No, I think that you're correct.
So that's and that comes in at number 2. And before we say what number 1 is, let's just play a little bit of this music. Because if you know that music, then you have seen this movie.
And you've won a prize.
And you have won a prize.
No, we talk about this movie all the time, and it's still number 1 because, damn it, I don't think you people are watching it.
It is called Calvaire, which translates to The Ordeal.
And it is. It's an ordeal.
It is an ordeal. And it's what country?
Belgian. It's Belgian.
Another Belgian.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is... It's a traveling, what do you call him? He's an entertainer. He's a singer.
He's a singer.
And as so many horror movies get started, he breaks down in the woods.
He does.
He's lost in the woods.
Mark. This, and the character is just beautifully played, delicately played by an actor named Laurent Lucas, and he's so good. And I've said this before. I've described the film as, if
David
Lynch had directed Deliverance in French.
Yeah.
That's what this movie would be.
That's a really well put together sentence about how this movie comes across. Because just if you've seen those movies and you know who David Lynch is and Deliverance and all that just calls to mind, ooh, that could be weird.
Yeah.
And boy, this is.
It's so weird. And the bad guy is so likable. And then, it's like, what's going on underneath of everything? You just keep thinking to yourself, what's going on underneath of everything?
Especially with the scene where that music is playing.
Oh, but then there's also, like, Boris. There's just a neighbor guy who keeps looking for his dog.
Yeah.
It turns out to be a calf.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't even know. So much. Yeah. There's so much going on in this movie.
But he gets lost in the woods, and then he takes shelter at this house, and he thinks that, okay, he'll get his truck fixed, and everything will be fine. Well, no, it won't.
It really, really won't.
It won't.
Really won't.
The guy who owns the house and has no intention of fixing his truck, he wants him to stay for pretty specific reasons. And then you find out about the whole community there, where they live and how they live.
Well, and you sort of, something's happened to all the women.
Yes.
I don't know what. They don't tell you what. There just aren't any. Have they fled, or is it worse than that? You don't know.
Yeah.
No, and they never even scratch the surface.
Yeah.
They just...
And that has, of course, made the men act different ways.
Yeah.
And boy, when it comes together at a bar, at a gathering place.
Oh my.
And one of them kind of gets the high sign from another to go over and start playing piano. And when he plays this song, and it just breaks out into a weird dance, and you start
It's one of the things about the movie that makes it so, I think, it's just unseemly, and part of that is there's the darkest comical element to it that you can't laugh at it because it's just so wrong.
Yeah.
And there's so much about this movie that's so wrong, but it's not mocking anything. It's not. It's deadly serious about what it's doing, and that's one of the reasons that it works as well as it does. It's just a movie like no other, and it's so good.
And as you can probably tell, we're having a hard time describing it because it's one of those you don't want to say too much, and really there's no way to adequately describe how they present these scenes and how weird they are.
Yeah.
And then once they get toward the end and he makes his break through the woods and he gets chased and then weird things happen. It's just.
But again, I just got to say, you know what? All of the performances are really great. Yeah. They really are. And some of the villains are unsettlingly empathetic and almost endearing. But again, Laurent Lucas, who plays Mark, poor Mark, he's just magnificent to the bitter end. His performance is just magnificent.
And there's also you talk about how all the women have seemed to have disappeared. And then there's that one woman who kind of comes on to Mark.
That's the thing. Before he gets lost, before he gets lost in the woods, he performs at like an old folks' home or something,
and gets the ladies riled up a little bit.
He does.
And that's a nice contrast.
It is
between that little microcosm of society that he leaves and the one he goes into once his truck breaks down.
Right.
So it's so weird, but definitely worth seeing. And it's not an out-and-out slasher movie by any means.
Oh, my goodness, no.
No, not at all. So, but it is an ordeal for Mark, I'll tell you.
It's punishing. It can be a punishing movie.
It can be punishing, and it's just, it's one that's hard to describe adequately.
Right.
But you'll know what we mean if you check it out, and that's why it's number one of our top 6, top 5 countdown of movies we bet you haven't seen, but you should. Call there, The Ordeal from 2004.
Now, tell us, though, what did we miss? What do you think we haven't seen? Because God knows we'd love to get some recommendations.
And you know what? Maybe you're going to say, you know what? No, I've seen all 6 of those. And then I will say, high 5 to you. Or high 6 to you. If there's some that we've missed, because we will check them out immediately.
Right.
And get back to you. So let us know. We're at Mad Wolf on Twitter. We've got the Golden Spiral Media feedback line. We've got the Facebook page, which is also a lot of fun. That's Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook.
So that's it for this week. I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf. And this is the Fright Club podcast. Until next week.
Stay frightful, my friends.